Hi, I'm Don Harold. How are you? Today's Thursday, July the 10th, 2008. Now, I don't know what your summer plans include, but whatever you do in the summer, I bet it didn't include impeaching the President of the United States. But Congressman Dennis Kucinich of Ohio, he had kind of penciled that into his summer plans because last month in June, on the floor of the U.S. Congress, he was reading articles of impeachment of our sitting president. Today, you might know that Congressman Kucinich read another article of impeachment on the floor of the U.S. Congress. So I thought it was appropriate today to talk with the congressman and find out where he thinks these articles of impeachment are going. Now, before we get to those comments from the congressman, I want to talk with you about Ben Bernanke and Hank Paulson today on Capitol Hill. Paulson and Bernanke were on Capitol Hill to testify. But I thought the most interesting and telling parts about the testimony today before Congress happened between Barney Frank and Ron Paul.
We are talking about giving the Federal Reserve the power to not just get information, but to deal with various things which could include capital requirements and other factors. I have to say, when people say, well, they'll have this or that question about whether the Federal Reserve should do it, I invoke, as people have heard me do, the wisdom of a great 20th century philosopher, Henny Youngman. And the maxim was, how's your wife compared to what? And the Federal Reserve compared to what? I don't see any alternative to the Federal Reserve.
Now, if you saw him say that and you're like me, you raised your hand and said, no, I've got some solutions. Well, leave it to Ron Paul to be the one guy in Congress to have our back.
I would like to take a minute to just challenge something he said during his questioning, because he made the flat statement that there was no alternative to the Federal Reserve System. Now, I don't want to take my time to explain the alternative, but maybe later on Chairman Frank and I can talk and I can explain to him what an alternative might be.
I want you to watch the response that Barney Frank gave to Ron Paul.
That's not very likely.
That response from Barney Frank is all you need to know. The chairman of the banking committee doesn't give a shit about you and me. He doesn't care about whether the Federal Reserve is jamming us. He is bought and sold by the Federal Reserve. Now, before we get into my interview with Congressman Kucinich, I want to tell you a little bit about the man that you may not know. His voting record is absolutely amazing. But Dennis Kucinich voted against the Patriot Act, and in whole other videos we could talk about it. But whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, you need to know Dennis Kucinich is an American patriot. And now for my interview with Congressman Dennis Kucinich out of the 10th District of Ohio. Can you talk a little bit about why you brought the articles of impeachment and where you think they're actually going to go at this point in time?
Our nation has a constitution that is at risk. The president has repeatedly violated the law and violated the Constitution and placed our very democracy in jeopardy. The articles of impeachment are aimed at bringing the truth forward, establishing the power of the Constitution, and by reference, the power of the people, and by resetting the pointer of our nation towards truth instead of abuse of power, and towards respect for the law instead of violations of the law.
Are you saying this is more of a symbolic gesture to lead people to an ideal, or do you believe that something...
No, I mean, listen, George Bush has committed offenses that should cause him to be impeached and removed from office. I mean, this isn't taken lightly. This isn't done for symbolic purposes. One aspect of it is certainly to provide a public record, historical record, but I fully intend to see hearings, and the hearings, if they're thorough, would, I think, cause Congress to reflect on its obligation to the American people to hold this president to accounting. The other point is that we have to establish that the next president of the United States will know that he cannot conduct himself on the same level or with the same conduct. So I just, there's practical reasons to proceed. Nothing symbolic about this. This is, his crimes were not symbolic, they were real.
Speaking of real crimes, What is your take on the Federal Reserve?
The Federal Reserve is not federal, and whatever they have in reserve doesn't belong to the people. The Federal Reserve is there to service and protect the position of the banks. And the banks are in American life to make sure that the wealth of the nation accelerates upwards. The Fed, when it was created in 1913, actually the money creation power of the country was removed to private hands. This is something that most Americans don't have any clue about.
Now,
so the Federal Reserve, first of all, needs to be held accountable within their sphere of activities now, because they played a role in looking the other way when the subprime loan scandal was burgeoning. They played a role in looking the other way, not regulating activity in hedge funds and the speculators on Wall Street. And they played a role in looking the other way with respect to the practices in the financial community, which essentially they've taken a laissez-faire approach. So, the Fed at least should be reformed, and at best there should be a repeal of the 1913 authorization, and we need to look at the money power issues in order to reclaim our democracy.
Repealing and abolishing the Federal Reserve. I understand impeachment articles of the president, and we went through this with Bill Clinton. We're going through it with George Bush with what you're doing, and many people support that. But what about the abolishment of the Fed? When will Congress? When will someone in Congress?
Bill Clinton was subject to an impeachment for perjury concerning a sexual an act of sexual consent. Mr. Bush's violations of the law are not even by any way, shape, or form comparable. They exceed not just the offenses of Mr. Clinton by many degrees of magnitude. Now let's go talk about the Fed. I have long believed that that issues that relate to how money is created, the debt-based nature of our monetary system, has a lot to do with the way in which wealth accumulates and accelerates upward. So what I'm interested in is equity. I'm interested in equity in markets. I'm interested in equity in tax structures. I'm interested in equity with respect to the distribution of power in the banking system. And right now we have the opposite of it, and it's really a very great danger to our communities and to our American way of life.
When will someone in Congress be as forthright about abolishing the Federal Reserve? And I agree with what you're saying.
Well, Congress isn't going to do anything right now. I mean, there needs to be a movement developed that would, that could be really substantive to cause the American people to be educated on these issues and to demand the kind of reform that will put more power in their lives.
What do you suggest that we, as a country, do to restore the constitutional rule of law back to this country? What can I do? I know what you're doing. I know what you can do. What can the viewers of my channel do starting right now to affect change in this country?
Be informed. I mean, follow these events carefully. Once you do that, you can see it's easy to understand what is transpiring. You can see if there's deception going on if you follow this on a day-to-day basis. Stand up, speak out, be heard. Don't be silent. Be heard from. Be visible. Act. Come from your heart. That's where the power is. I really appreciate a chance to be on this show, and I would just ask your listeners and viewers to go to the web to read the impeachment resolution that I introduced today. And whatever you can do to be of help, it's a good time to do it.
Well, I appreciate you coming on so much.
Thank you, and let's talk again, okay?
I appreciate it. Take care. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye now.